Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gut Girls podcast. Angela and I are back together again. It's been an odd few weeks around here, honestly, because I've had some big changes in my life that I'm going to share with you soon. I'll leave you with that little cliffhanger a little bit, but I want to jump into something that is really exciting. We have a lot of people that come to a lot of potential clients that come to us about kids, and so it's interesting. Last week we talked with my teenager. And at the very end, she gave some great advice, which is like, listen to your body. She didn't say it maybe in these exact words, but she was like, listen to your body and speak and tell somebody if you have some symptoms or something that's going on. And something that's really interesting about that is Angela, who I'm going to turn this over to in just a second. She has a 2.5-year-old daughter, and her daughter, she just recently did a stool test on Eloise. Her name is Eloise. She's the cutest little thing you've ever seen in your life. I mean, she is precious. And but she couldn't vocalize exactly what she was experiencing. And so Angela, tell us a little bit about how Eloise was feeling, what she was telling you, and then share with us her stool test.
Yeah, well, and I listened to the podcast with Michaela and I was just blown away. For her age, I mean, it shows how much you talk to her about health and being in tune with your body, because she was phenomenal. And so, guys, that's a reminder to you as a parent. It pays off. It might not show in the moment, right? But it does pay off, and they pick this stuff up. So keep talking to them. And then, yeah, it was interesting. I do a stool test typically on myself and the girls at least yearly. I liked it. It's how I check in with like, is what I'm doing for my family, valid for what we need right now in the season of life that we're in. And so it was about that time to do it on myself. And then I was like, okay, I said to my husband, I was like, Eloise has been complaining she's 2.5, but she's been saying my belly hurts. And for a 2.5-year-old to say that repeatedly, as a mom, doesn't that raise like a big question mark of like, they don't actually know how to talk about pain. And so the fact that she was very clear, I was like, okay, this is something that you're trying to get across to me. And then I was telling Diana actually that another thing she was saying, so you guys probably all know there's a phrase that your kids say when it's like panic mode. Like imagine driving down the road and like all of a sudden someone's like, I don't know, whatever their phrase is, but you're like, oh my gosh, our kid's going to throw up, stop. Like Eloise's phrase is my mouth hurts. Like we've just known that about her over the past year or so. She's 2.5, but we've caught on that like if you're driving with her and she says my mouth hurts, something's going on in her stomach, like, and most likely it's going to end up in vomit. So let's pull over. And so she started saying my belly hurt, and then she would randomly say my mouth hurts. And so we started putting this together of like, okay, there's something GI wise going on with her, and she wasn't actually vomiting. So it wasn't a need to take her to the pediatrician. But we also noticed she didn't have the same appetite, and she's 2.5. So, I mean, she can eat and she can snack. If you guys have ever raised a 2.5-year-old, you're like, all I do is feed them all day long. Right. And so she wasn't eating as much. And so I pulled the trigger and I ordered her GI map, and guys, it was awesome. Like I geek out on this stuff, but it was so revealing as to what was going on. So you guys don't get to see that many GI maps on the podcast. So I'm going to share her GI map. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. And if you guys are just listening, maybe this is something you come back to if you're driving right now and look at if you actually want to see it visually. But we're going to kind of walk through it. So Diana, can you see the test there?
Yes, I can. And I thought I would, before you jump into that just a little bit, I thought I would just, for those of you listening that you're like, what is a GI map test? I know there's some people out there that are and don't even really understand what that is. It's a comprehensive stool test that we use as a roadmap for our clients to kind of give a picture of what's going on inside the gut. And just like Angela says a lot, the gut keeps the score. And so we really use this as a guide, as a tool for our clients to be able to figure out, use our foundational tools that we talk about on here all the time. We go more in depth into our memberships. And then this gives them a more personalized look of exactly what's going on inside the gut. And so that's what we do inside our membership. I'll tell you a little bit more about that after Angela goes through this stool test. But I did want to tell you, when I say a stool test, that means you actually get to do it in the comfort of your own home. So obviously Angela did this for her 2.5-year-old. You ship it off, and about 2 weeks later, you get the results. And this is what the stool test looks like. Obviously, yours would look exactly like what's going on inside your gut. But here, we're going to look at Angela's 2.5-year-old Eloise.
Yeah. And guys, collecting it wasn't easy. She knew I was up to something. And I think if you listen to an old podcast, she is 2.5, but she's smart. She was like, "You're going to collect my poop." And we laughed about it. And I mean, I swear, I felt like she was purposely going when I was not around. So it did, as a mom, it's okay. It probably took me like a solid 3 to 4 days until I finally got a sample. And if you're wondering, how do you collect it for a 2.5-year-old? There's lots of ways. She's got a potty that's on the floor right now that she just uses on her own. She's really good at potty training. And so literally I just waited until she just had a bowel movement, because you don't want it collected with urine. And so even if she went, but it was, urine and stool, I didn't use that one. So I had to wait till it was just a bowel movement. And then I literally just collected, like literally there's a scooper. And yes, it sounds disgusting, but guys, this is life. And honestly, this is every GI doctor collecting stool samples and every hospital doing this. You just get to do it from the comfort of your own home. But it is scooping it out and mixing it in a vial. And so we did get it done.
I would imagine that your experience with her was slightly different than my teenager. Can you imagine? Michaela, so you can imagine what that was like.
Yeah, it was Michaela grossed out. I know she talked about it a little bit. Was she totally grossed out about
it? I hope this isn't too loud, but she that I say this, but she was constantly like,
yeah. Guys, most adults are like that. I mean, honestly, a lot of our clients are like, I have to work up. In fact, this just is a quick side note. We have a community, right, where we talk to our members every week. And honestly, a lot of our members have to coach other members to be like, do it. It's going to be so worth it. Like, just do it. So you're not alone. And Michaela was not alone in that response to doing this. Yeah. But here's what's going to blow you away is how much information you get from it. Okay. So clearly right here, what you see is on the first page at the top is listed pathogens. And so these are what you see, like things like C. diff and E. coli and Shigella and Salmonella, Campylobacter. If you guys don't know what those mean, a lot of these are like foodborne illnesses that we kind of talk about that you can pick up from food and water. And then some of them, are a little bit more invasive, like C. diff and E. coli. And so these are good to have. Believe it or not, we actually see these pop up quite a bit, don't we, Diana?
Yeah, typically we see them more in a low level, because a lot of times when we see those, and if you're looking at the screen, you can see that there's one in yellow there. Typically, if you were going to see one in a really high, people are having, more symptoms, right? They're having lots of vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramping, pain. So I would say the majority of the time we actually see this one where there's nothing on the first page.
Yeah. And it says if you guys are looking, that below DL means below detectable limit. So her results are actually great. There's nothing found. Everything was below limit, except for when you get to the bottom and you see that viral pathogen. Okay. So this was interesting to me. It's the neurovirus, which is, if you guys typically get it, you'd probably just say like, I had a stomach bug, because no one's walking around saying I have got norovirus unless you test for it. But it's like a stomach bug where you typically have like some vomiting, some diarrhea. It could last 24 to 72 hours really at the most. But Eloise didn't actually have those symptoms. She complained of, like I said, her mouth was hurting and her belly hurt, but she never actually had a symptom beyond vomiting or diarrhea. And what's also interesting is none of us had it either. So my 6-year-old didn't come home and complain of an upset stomach once. Eloise was kind of on her own with this one. But to find out that it's in the yellow meant that she did have it. And the yellow means that it's at a very low level. Remember, the GI map is DNA. It will test the DNA level. And so it's picking up, it's more sensitive, which can be honestly really awesome, because we get to see things that we don't typically see elsewhere. So we get to see like, hey, her body is still holding holding on to small amounts of this norovirus, which is fascinating. I was talking to Diana before we hit record, to educate you guys of like, a lot of times, you think like you or your child gets a stomach bug, 72 hours, you're done, with the symptom of vomiting or diarrhea. And so it's like, okay, now we're back onto our lives. And that's not necessarily how I think we should look at it, because what you're going to see in the rest of the test is how it deeply affects her and how it deeply affected her gut. And these are things that now I'm like, okay, we've got to work to bring this back up, because if we don't, it's not like anything, chronically crazy is going to happen to her, but she is then left in a more, let's say, jeopardized state of her immune system and her nervous system. And so that's what I think is going to blow you guys away. Okay, so if we keep going down on the next page, you guys see at the top here, H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria that we're all born with. So this is not, you'll see her level is 3.30 to the exponential second, which just means 330 cells per gram. And so she has some of it, but honestly at that level, it's not, I wouldn't take it too serious, because it's well below the reference range, which is 1,000. So it's there, but we're all born with it. It does tend to creep up in a lot of people when chronic stress hits. We see it in a lot of women going through pregnancy, menopause, because it's a stressful state. It's a whole change in your being. So we can see it really in a lot of people. Now, Eloise's isn't problematic at this point in time, but it's good to see that it is there at a low level. I think that that's helpful, because H. pylori is a nervous system bug. So it makes sense to me to know that, hey, she was kind of at a very low state. When you have something like the norovirus, everything is jeopardized, right? You get pushed down to like all of your immune reserves are being used, and all of your nutrients are being utilized to keep this virus at bay. So we do tend to see bacteria that come out under stress surface. And I think that is really amazing to know, because if you never work yourself out of fully recover from a virus, guys, you're going into the next sickness that comes around at this level. And so, Diana, it's interesting, because when people ask like, how did I get here? Doesn't this kind of help explain, even from a 2.5-year-old's gut, like this is how you got there, right? Because you never really took a look inside to see, think of it as like how you've got hit every time from virus, bacteria, however your immune system was challenged, it was a hit. And if you didn't fully recover, you're left at that lower state. So, I mean, what do you think about that, Dana? I think it's fascinating to answer that question for our clients that are like, how did I get here?
Because it can linger for years, decades. I mean, there's some people that have said like, I know that I had giardia when I was a kid, and then a lot of times it will still pop back up on the test. Now, whether they got rid of it and then got it back again, who knows? But it's interesting. It could linger for a really long time. So like you said before, and it kind of goes back to even my original stool test where I had the parasite, and it's like, I remember you specifically saying, is my host healthy enough to get rid of the parasite? And I was like, no, wait, I'm scared. I have a parasite. What do I do? And you're like, no, we got to support the host, and then your body will get rid of the parasite. And sure enough, that's exactly what we did. I was super deficient in what you're about to talk about, this commensal bacteria. And so my body wasn't able to really get rid of that, eliminate the parasite as it should. And so once we supported my body and supported all these commensal bacteria that I was lacking so much, we did it in a personalized way and very specific for my body and what was going on. And once we did that, we retested and the parasite was gone.
This hits home. I had a recent conversation with a member of ours who was diagnosed with SIBO, and that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And she was told, her husband went and got tested, and they were told that he also had it and that she could have given it to him. And so when you're talking, I want to take this away from the 2.5-year-old for a second, because this applies to everyone, and say, it doesn't work like that, guys. Like, it doesn't. We live in a world full of parasites and bugs and all the overgrowth that makes up, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You don't just pass it along. If the other person that maybe is around you, like your husband, your spouse, your partner, if their immune system and their ecosystem of the gut is not healthy, like Diana's was, then yes, they're more prone to share some of your common bacteria. But guys, we're not talking about disease states here. Like, you don't just pass it to your spouse. The real thing is, I mean, you can pass it, but the real thing is, well, let's talk about their immune system and their ecosystem. Because if we keep chasing, like Diana, like the parasite, or from the client that I'm talking to, the SIBO, that we just keep chasing it because we're so-called passing it back and forth, we will chase it for the rest of our lives. But going and fixing the commensal, so look at Eloise here for a second. If you guys don't know how to read this at all, let me just jump down to one of the biggest things I see here. This bacteria phyla, guys, these two categories, they essentially make up 90% of your good bacteria. Okay, that's a lot. And you can clearly see both of hers are low, in the red low. So, okay, she was wiped out from that norovirus that we didn't even know she had. And if we never would have saw this, then I don't get to, help her build that back up. Eventually, she would build it back up through food. She's resilient. She's 2.5. I'm not actually worried about her building it back up. And we're going into summer. So we are in the best time. She'll be outside. She's not, she'll be just kind of like a freer, less stressed individual in general, not in daycare all the time. So it's the best time. But what if this was the winter? What if this was the fall going into the winter and your child had that same experience? Now you're going into a season where, gosh, if she picks up another, virus from daycare or something, it's going to affect her even worse. It's going to put her into the hole. So I really want to focus on not the norovirus here. That was kind of like a coincidental finding, and it did help us understand why she was complaining. But honestly, what I'm going to help her support now is the good bacteria. I want to get these guys up because your good bacteria drive your immune system. They drive your metabolism. She's 2.5, guys. She needs to grow neurologically, and her nervous system. If you guys have ever been around a sick kid, they're much more whiny because it's like, how does your body feel inside when it doesn't have the reserves? Life is harder. So this is something else that some people will say to us as their kids is like, my kid just never seemed to bounce back. They were sick, but now I notice like life is harder for them. Their emotions are bigger. They can't handle the same, stress that their brother or sister can, and they used to at one point. Well, this could be why, because they're depleted and they're not getting the, the nutrition to help their body and their nervous system be more resilient. I think it's fascinating. And then, really what's up above here is just the breakdown kind of these phyla. A lot of them I just know from, education that like this fragilis, this Bacteroides fragilis does speak of her nervous system. So I know right away, like, okay, she is struggling there. Her gut lining, her immune system is struggling there. This Enterobacter that's also trending downwards, that's her gut lining. So like, I know we have some work to do here, but the fact that that neurovirus was in the yellow and we still see such broad effects on the good bacteria, isn't that fascinating when her symptoms were really not that bad? When we go to the page 3, this is her opportunistic or overgrowth bacteria. So I like to say, like, these are the bacteria that when given the right opportunity, maybe that's low stomach acid, maybe that's chronic stress, maybe that's malnutrition. If given the right opportunity, they will grow. And honestly, I don't know that there was anything red on this page. Some of these guys actually should have a number here because they are, like, if you can read this, they are actually commensal unless they're high. So these actually are great that there's a number here. She did have some values up here. Bacillus and Enterococcus, honestly, we see on a lot of people when stomach acid changes. And so guys, I absolutely would guess to say her stomach acid slightly dipped because, I mean, she wasn't eating as much. And like she said, her belly hurt, her body was under stress. So honestly, this is a really good page though, for a 2.5-year-old to have no overgrowth. Now, if you have a child who, let's say, went into the norovirus already depleted, then yeah, we might start to see some reds pop up here. And this is where, Diana, a lot of the kids that come to us, when their parents come to us as clients, when this is red, we're seeing bigger symptoms like rashes and hives, right?
Lots of symptoms. That's exactly what I was thinking is if you're like, my kid never complains about their stomach or, whatever, but maybe they have eczema or, some sort of rash or something like that. They're eating and they, get red and flush or whatever the case may be. That's a lot of times an indication that something on this page is going to be red. Not always, but again, that's where I want you to just kind of connect those dots a little bit. That gut skin connection is a true actual thing. That's why actually we talk to a lot of dermatologists and share clients integrated with their care with getting the gut right, because a lot of times we do see highs here for those people that have a lot of the skin irritations. And that's what we see mostly with kids, I would say, as far as actual symptoms.
Mm-hmm. You know, what's interesting is Eloise was a baby who had eczema, and it was full body for, I don't think she wasn't even she was a baby. And I do remember at that point, it's actually great for me to see this test. It's kind of a confirmation of like, okay, all the hard work is paying off, because I remember at that time I had to give up like gluten, dairy, because I was breastfeeding her. And so I had to be super strict for like 5 months. And we did a lot of her first foods were like, some of the craziest things like sardines. You can do like whipped bone marrow. I mean, we kind of went all out because I just knew better at the time. And I knew that her gut lining really needed support. And so we went to the extreme of what her first foods were. But honestly, guys, it paid off. I mean, we did probably like avocado. We did some really good healthy fats in the beginning. I remember making my own gelatin gummies, like the gummy bears. And I was using like, broth and gelatin. So, I mean, I actually just thought of that right now. I didn't even think of this when I first saw it, but hey, it does definitely pay off. It helps. When you go to the next page, parasites. And so what's interesting here is you do see one in yellow, Entamoeba coli. Now, I want to make a note here that Entamoeba coli, so the yellow means that it's not very high, but there's a low level, that they're finding, that they're detecting. But Entamoeba coli is one that typically the body will deal with itself. We call it like a transient parasites. Now, all parasites can be transient, but sometimes like we'll see Blastocyst hominis and Dientomoeba fragilis. These are guys that Diane and I have seen like super, super high, like 3 to 4 powers of 10 higher than the reference range. And when they are that high, they typically don't just take care of themselves. But Entamoeba coli, even Endolimax nana, these are kind of known to take care of themselves as long as the immune system is strong. So again, I'm not chasing after the norovirus with her as her, let's say, gut health coach. I'm not going to target the norovirus. I'm actually not even going to target Entamoeba coli. I didn't even blink an eye when I saw it. I was like, she's 2.5. She puts her fingers everywhere she shouldn't. She's touching everything and putting it in her mouth still. So like, I'm not worried about why it's there or how it got there. What I'm more worried about is I look down here at these intestinal health markers. Okay. And the biggest one that you guys will see right away under immune response is her secretory IgA. So that is her big, like, majority of your immune system is going to live in the gut. Now, there's other parts of your immune system, like the lymph system and all that, but a big chunk of your immune system is made in the gut. It lives in the gut. And so look how low hers is. It's 227, when the lowest we really want to see here is 510. So that tells me, like, okay, where am I going to put all my eggs in the basket for her? I'm going to get her immune system going, because I trust that if we do that, because this is how the body works, if I can help her immune system get back on, a level of responsiveness, then it's going to clear out the Entamoeba. It's going to take care of the norovirus that's left. And a part of how we bring up that immune system is we build her commensal too. So that's how, as a gut health coach, we get to really personalize this and say, okay, if you were a client that came to us with your child, yes, we have these findings, but we're not gonna attack. There's not anything to kill here. There's nothing to kill here. This poor girl just needs support. And then the other thing we kind of see here is her elastase 1. It's in the yellow. That's her ability to digest food. And so At 355 for a little kid, she's not doing terrible. She's in the yellow. But guys, this I'd like to see like 500, maybe even like 700s for her. So she's clearly struggling after that norovirus to digest all of her food. And if we don't support that, no matter what I feed her, we're not going to build back up the commensal and we're not going to build back up the immune system. So really this intestinal health marker page that you don't get when you go to your GI doctor and you do a stool test. You see page 1, you see E. coli, C. diff, Campylobacter, Salmonella, you see some of those guys. Even if you just test for H. pylori, which can be done through a breath test, sometimes a biopsy, like through an endoscopy, or if you just test for SIBO, which you can do again through a breath test. Guys, if you just use those tests, you don't get to see this part. And this is honestly, like I call it the gold, because then I don't know, okay, you might have all these things, but what do you personally need to get better? So let me tell you what we did. First and foremost, with this elastase 1, I got her from Transformation Enzymes. It's called Kids Digest. They are chewable digestive enzymes. And she's 2.5. So I just kind of dose it by her weight. And I give her, one with her meals. I send one to daycare. She's got it with breakfast and dinner here at home. So I'm supporting her digestion of nutrients right out of the gate. The second thing that I did for her was I ordered the IgGI Shield from Designs for Health, because that is a powder that is going to support the immune system. And she needs that. It's called an immunoglobulin. And so it's going to support her immune system. But at the same time, if there's anything left coming off that parasite and that norovirus, like any endotoxins in the gut that it's releasing, we're going to bind whatever is left and pull that out for her. And quite frankly, she really didn't even have, like I said, diarrhea. But I would say what's so interesting, we're a family of gut. I'm a gut health coach. So my family talks about their bowel movements every day. And even my husband, like when he'll go in and, change her little potty on the ground, he'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where she hid this. Like it was so big. And honestly, they actually changed even bigger since I started adding the IgGI Shield, which tells me we're getting a lot. She's having much better bowel movements. They were never diarrhea, but they weren't looking this good. They weren't looking this healthy. So, I mean, I'm like, wow, she's already responding. We've got bigger bowel movements. She's clearing. That's how kids respond. They should respond like a snap of the finger pretty fast, because they're resilient. They've got youth behind them. They've got lots of growth behind them. And so those were two of the things that I did right away for her. Now, I'm going to go back to her commensal here, just to scroll back for a second. I did add in a probiotic too. She's actually doing it's Designs for Health. Diana, is it the ProBiomed Kids? I think that's the chewable.
Mm-hmm.
So she's on that. That's just like a 50 billion, I think.
It's actually 10.
10. Okay. Diana's the supplement expert. It's 10 billion, and that's going to help bring up these commensals. So I'm feeding the good bacteria. We're working on her immune system. We're working to support her digestive system. None of it is, attacking at all. It's all support. And in addition to that, I would say I added in a little bit of vitamin D, even though we're spring. So we've got some really sunny days out. I'm doing a very minimal drop of vitamin D about every other day, honestly, just to give her a little bit more immune support. And then we're just watching, her intake of sugar. She's 2.5. We don't do a lot of sugar, but she'll sure find a way to get it. And so we're just kind of like monitoring that. Nothing big in her life has really changed. I mean, she wouldn't really know a huge difference, but we already see the difference, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love that you are so in tune with that. I mean, you can really pinpoint exactly what's going on using the GI map test so that you can fix it. You're not a medical doctor, and neither am I, but we love looking at this again as a tool. And so this is personalized for Eloise, and that's so cool. And again, a lot of clients that come to us for their kids, that's where we can say, what are the symptoms they're experiencing? And let's take a look at what their GI map test looks like and where do we need to support them? And then we're really strategic in the way that we do it. Just like you said, there was nothing really for her, excuse me, that needed to be attacked. But you really needed to just mostly support her body. And so that's what you can see when you do a GI map test for your own child. You get to see what that looks like. And of course, I mean, we do this for adults as well, but especially for a 2.5-year-old that can't verbalize other than saying my belly hurts. She doesn't really know what that means, but clearly these are some answers where she wasn't digesting her food well. Kids are not like us where, we talk about on here some of the foundational things for adults, like sit up straight, stop multitasking, don't eat during a meeting, make sure that you're chewing really well. I mean, kids are, doing 7,000 things while they're eating. And so you can't really help her, settle her nervous system to eat because that's just, she's a kid, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where you knew that you needed to support that by looking at the GI map test. And so I really appreciate you sharing that with us. We are going to share more of these tests sometime in the future, but we wanted to do that and kind of couple that with what Michaela had said too about hers as well. So we're going to go ahead and sign off today. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, you could go to our website, gutgirls.health. Full transparency here. We're doing an overhaul of our website, of our portal that we have for our memberships. Like, we're just diving in so deep to make sure that this is really truly so many of the tools along with the GI map test, but the community support and so many things that you guys need to build all of this well. And honestly, to share it with your friends and family members. If you've gotten great results like most of our clients have, then we want you to share that with your friends and family members and have them come be a part of our community as well. So again, you can go to the website gutgirls.health. Be a little patient with us right now as we're transitioning some things, but we're excited to, share some of that with you soon, what the new website looks like and some of our offerings and all of those things. So
yeah,
I do feel
like we're always updating, but that's what we do. When you guys give us feedback, we're like, we'll make it happen. And so then I just want to add one more thing, guys. Please subscribe to our podcast and share this, subscribe and like it so that we can get more people hearing all this amazing education, and share it with a friend of yours that has a kid that's struggling. This could be honestly such a huge gift. Like I have goosebumps saying that because we see it over and over again. It's like the gift that no one could give them. So please do share, subscribe, like our podcast, and we can't wait to hear and be with you on the next podcast and just give you even more information.
The Gut Girls podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. We are not acting as licensed medical professionals. Always consult your doctor before making any changes to your health routine.